Now let us move on to the biography of a prominent Filipino, which is Carlos P. Garcia. Carlos Polistico Garcia was born on November 4, 1896 and died on June 4, 1971. And he was often referred by his initials CPG, was a Filipino teacher, poet, orator, lawyer, public official, political economist, guerrilla, and a Commonwealth military leader who was the 8th President of the Philippines from 1957 to 1961. He previously served as the 4th Vice President of the Philippines from 1953 to 1957. He was also the first president of the 1971 Philippine Constitutional Convention, the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Senator of the Philippines, 10th Governor of Bohol, and member of the House of Representatives of Bohol's 3rd District. Now let us move on to the early life and education of Carlos P. Garcia. So Garcia was born in Talibon, Bohol, Philippines on the 4th of November 1896 to Policronio Garcia and Ambrosia Polistico, who was born natives of Banguered, Abra. He acquired his primary education in his native town in Talibon, then took his secondary education in Cebu Provincial High School, now Abiliana National High School, both at the top of his class. He pursued his college education in Silliman University in Dumaguete, Negros Oriental, and later studied in the Philippine Law School, then the College of Law National University, where he earned his law degree in 1923 and later where he was awarded an honorary degree in Doctor of Humanities honoris causa from the National University in 1961. Garcia grew up with politics, with his father serving as a municipal mayor for 4 terms. He acquired his primary education in his native town in Talibon. He also received an honorary doctorate degree from Tokyo University in Japan. He was among the top 10 law students in the 1923 bar examination. Rather than practicing law right away, he worked as a teacher in Bohol for 2 years in Bohol Provincial High School. He became a famous for his poetry in Bohol, where he earned the nickname Prince of Visayan Poets and the Bard from Bohol. A lawyer by profession, Garcia entered politics when he was the representative of Bohol's 3rd District in the House of Representatives. He was then served as a senator from 1945 to 1953. He was the Nacionalista Party List nominee for Vice President as the running mate of Ramon Magsaysay in the presidential election of 1953, which they won. After the death of Magsaysay in 1957, he succeeded to the presidency, winning a full term of his own right in the presidential election that same year. He was subsequently defeated by his vice president Diosdado Macapagal in the year 1961 presidential election. Now let us move on to another prominent Filipino figure, which is Diosdado Macapagal. So Diosdado Macapagal was born on September 28, 1910 in Lubao, Philippines, and died in April 21, 1997 in Makati. Was a reformist president of the Philippines from 1961 to 1965. So, Diosdado Macapagal is the 9th President of the Philippines, 5th Vice President of the Philippines, a member of the House of the Representatives from Pampanga's 1st District, the 2nd President of the 1971 Philippine Constitutional Convention, and the 5th President of the Philippine Liberal Party. The early life and education of Diosdado Macapagal. So Diosdado Macapagal was born in 1920 was born in September 28, 1910 in Barrio San Nicolas, Lubao, Pampanga. He was the third of the 5 children in a poor family. His father was Urbano Romero Macapagal, a poet who wrote a local Kapampangan language, and his mother is Romana Pangan Macapagal. Diosdado's family earned extra income by raising pigs and accumulating borders in their home. Due to his roots in poverty, Macapagal would later become affectionately known as the poor boy from Lubao. Diosdado also a reputed poet in the Spanish language, although his poetic work was eclipsed by his political career. Macapagal excelled in his studies at the local public school, graduating valedictorian from Lubao Elementary School and salutatorian in Pampanga High School. He finished his pre-law course at the University of the Philippines, Manila, and then enrolled in the Philippine Law School in 1932, studying on a scholarship and supporting himself with a part-time job as an accountant. Macapagal raised enough money to continue his studies at the University of Santo Tomas. He later returned to his alma mater to take up graduate studies and earn his Master's of Law degree in 1941 and a Doctor of Civil Law in 1947 and a PhD in Economics in 1957. After receiving his law degree, Macapagal was admitted to the bar in 1936. During World War II, he practiced law in Manila and aided an anti-Japanese resistance. After the war, he worked in a law firm in 1948 and served as a second secretary of the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. The following year, he was elected to a seat of the Philippine House of Representatives, serving until 1956. During his time, he was the Philippine representative to the United Nations General Assembly 3 times. From 1957 to 1961, Macapagal was a member of a Liberal Party and a vice president under the Nacionalista President Carlos Garcia. In 1961 elections, however, he ran against Garcia, forging a coalition of the Liberal Party and Progressive parties and marking a crusade against political corruption and principal element of his platform. He was elected by a wide margin. While President, Macapagal worked to suppress graft and corruption and stimulate the Philippine economy. He placed the peso on the free currency exchange market, encouraged exports, passed country's first landform legislation, and sought the crime of income tax evasion, particularly by the wealthiest family, which cost the treasury millions of pesos yearly. His reforms, however, were cribbed by the House of Representatives and the Senate, dominated by nationalistas, and he was defeated in 1965 presidential elections by Ferdinand Marcos. In 1972, he chaired the convention and drafted the 1973 Constitution, but in 1981, he questioned the validity of its ratification. In 1979, he organized a National Union for Liberation as an opposition party to the Marcos regime. Now let us move on to the next biography of a Filipino prominent figure, which is the president of the Philippines, which is Ferdinand Marcos Sr. Ferdinand Emmanuel Idralin Marcos Sr. was born on September 11th of 1917 and died on September 28, 1989, was a Filipino lawyer, politician, and a dictator and a autocrat who served as the 10th President of the Philippines from 1965 to 1986. He ruled the country under a martial law in 1972 to 1981, granting himself expanded powers under 1973 Constitution. Marcos described his philosophy as a constitutional authoritarianism. Authoritarian, authoritarianism. He was deposed in 1986 by the Philippine People Power Revolution and was succeeded as president by Corazon Aquino. He was the 10th president in the Philippines, the 3rd prime minister of the Philippines, secretary of national defense, 9th president of the Senate of the Philippines, Senate minority leader, senator of the Philippines, member of the House of Representatives from Ilocos Norte 2nd District, and the 6th president of the Liberal Party. The Ferdinand Marcos Sr.'s early life and education. So Ferdinand Emmanuel Edralin Marcos was born on the 11th of September 1917 in the town of Sarat, Ilocos Norte, to Mariano Marcos and Josefa Idlarin. Marcos studied law in the University of the Philippines, UP Manila, attending the College of Law. He was an accomplished orator, debater, and a writer for a student newspaper. While attending the University of the Philippines College of Law, he joined UP Silon Sigma Philippines, where he met his future colleges in government and some of his staunch critics. When he was sat in the 1939 bar examination, he was the top scorer with a score of 92.35%. He graduated cum laude and was in the top 10 of his class. Marcos gained political success by exaggerating his actions in World War II, claiming to have been the most decorated war hero in the Philippines. United States Army documents describe his claims as fraudulent and absurd. After the war, he became a lawyer. He served in the Philippine House of Representatives from 1949 to 1959 and the Philippine Senate from 1959 to 1965. He was elected president in 1965. He was presided over an economy that grew during the beginning of his 20-year rule, but ended in loss of livelihood and extreme poverty for almost half the Philippine population, combined with debt and crisis. He pursued infrastructure developments funded by foreign debt, making him popular during his first term, although the aid triggered an inflation crisis that led to social unrest in his second term. Marcos placed the Philippines under martial law on September 23, 1972, shortly before he ended his second term. Martial law was ratified in 1973 through a fraudulent referendum. He ruled the country under martial law from 1972 to 1981. The Constitution was revised, media outlets were silenced, and violence and oppression were used against political opposition, Muslims, suspected communists, and ordinary citizens. After his election to a third term, in 1981 presidential election and referendum, Marcos' popularity suffered due to an economic collapse that began in 1983 and the public outrage over assassination of the opposition leader Senator Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. that year. This discontent, the resulting resurgence of the opposition in 1984 parliamentary election, and discovery of the documents exposing his financial accounts of the false war records lead to Marcos to a call of a snap election in 1986. Allegations of mass election fraud, political turmoil, and human rights abuse lead to the People Power Revolution of February 1986, which ultimately removed him from power. To avoid what could have been a military confrontation in Manila between pro and anti-Marcos troops, Marcos was advised by the U.S. President Ronald Reagan through Senator Paul Laxalt to cut cleanly. Marcos then fled with his family to Hawaii. He was succeeded by the president by Aquino's widow wife, Corazon Cory Aquino. Many people who rose power during the Marcos era remained in power after his exile, including Fidel Ramos, a general who became a president. According to source document provided by the Presidential Commission on Good Governance or PCGG, the Marcos family stole a US dollar of $5 million to $10 million from the Central Bank of the Philippines. The PCGG also maintained that Marcos family enjoyed a decadent lifestyle, taking billions of dollars from the Philippines between 1965 and 1986. Upon his legacy, Marcos is widely regarded as the most controversial figures in the Philippines, with its governmental rule form and kleptocracy under the Marcos dictatorial regime was widely condemned, and his regime was infamous for corruption, extravagance, and brutality. His wife, Imelda Marcos, was infamous for her own right by excesses and characterized her and her husband's conjugal dictatorship. Is source of a term Imeldific. Both their two of their children, Amy and Bongbong Marcos, became an active Philippine politics, and Bongbong being elected as a president in 2022. Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos held a Guinness World Record for the largest ever theft from a government for decades, although Guinness took the record down from their website while underwent periodic review of a few weeks before the 2022 presidential elections. Now let us move on to our next prominent figure, which is Maria Corazon Cory Sumulong Cuangco Aquino. Was born on the 25th of January 1933 and died on August 1, 2009. Was a Filipino politician who served as the 11th President of the Philippines and the first woman president in the country from 1986 to 1992. She was the most prominent figure of the 1986 People Power Revolution, which ended the two-decade rule of the President Ferdinand Marcos, led to establish the current democratic Fifth Philippine Republic. Aquino also oversaw the drafting of the Philippine 1987 Philippine Constitution. Early life and education of Corazon Aquino. So, Maria Corazon Sumulong Cuangco was born on the 25th of January 1933 in Panique, Tarlac. She was born in a prominent Cuangco family. Aquino spent her elementary days in St. Scholastica's College in Manila, where she graduated at the top of her class as a valedictorian. After her family moved to the United States, she attended the Assumption-run Ravenhill Academy in Philadelphia. She then transferred to Notre Dame Convent School in New York City, where she graduated in 1949. After graduating from high school, she pursued her college education at the College of Mount St. Vincent in New York, graduating in 1953 with a major in French and minor in mathematics. Aquino was married to the Senator Benigno Aquino Jr., who was one of the most prominent critics of President Marcos. After the assassination of her husband on the 21st of August 1983, she emerged as a leader of the opposition against the president. In the late 1985, Marcos called a snap election, and Aquino ran for president with former Senator Salvador Laurel as her running mate for vice president. After the election held on February 7, 1986, the Batasang Pambansa proclaimed Marcos and his running mate Aurora Tolentino as the winners, which prompted allegations of electoral fraud and Aquino's call for massive civil disobedience action. Subsequently, the People Power Revolution, a non-violent mass demonstration movement, took place from the 22nd to the 25th of February. The People Power Revolution, along with the defection from the armed forces of the Philippines and the support of the Philippine Catholic Church, ousted Marcos and secured Aquino's accession to the presidency on February 25, 1986. Prior to her election as a president, Aquino had not held any elected office. She was the first female president of the Philippines. As a president, Aquino oversaw the drafting of the 1987 Constitution, which limited the power of presidency and re-established bicameral Congress, removing the previous dictatorial government structure. Her economic policies focused on forging good economy standing amongst the international community, as well as the establishing Marcos-era crony capitalist monopolist, emphasizing the free market and responsible economy. Her administration pursued peace talks to resolve the Moro conflict, and result of this, the Moro talks, is the creation of the autonomous religion in Muslim Mindanao. Aquino was criticized for the Menjola massacre, which resulted in the shooting deaths of at least 12 peaceful protests by Philippine state security forces. The Philippines faced various natural calamities in the later part of Aquino's administration, such as the 1990 Luzon earthquake, the 1991 Mount Pinatubo eruption, and the tropical storm Thelma. Several coup attempts were made against her government. She was succeeded as a president by Fidel V. Ramos and returned to civilian life in 1992. Aquino was diagnosed with colorectal cancer in 2008 and died on the 1st of August 2009. Her son Benigno Aquino III served as a president of the Philippines from 2010 to 2016. After her death, monuments were built and public landmarks were named in honor of Corazon Aquino all around the Philippines. Aquino was regarded as the mother of democracy here in the Philippines. Let us move on to our next prominent Filipino, which is Fidel Valdez Ramos, who was born in March 18, 1928 and died on July 31, 2022. He was the 12th President of the Philippines, the 17th Secretary of Defense, the 19th Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, Vice Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, Chief of the Philippine Constabulary, and the Director General of the Integrated National Police. Early life and education of Fidel V. Ramos. Fidel Valdez Ramos was born on the 18th of March 1928 in Ligayin, Pangasinan, and he grew up in Angisan town during his childhood. He received an elementary education in Ligalin Public School. Ramos began his secondary education at the University of the Philippines High School, now known as the UP Integrated School in Manila, and continued in his high school department of Mopua Institute of Technology. He graduated high school from Centro Escolar University Integrated School in 1945. He went to the United States as he received appointment to the United States Military Academy, where he graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Military Engineering degree. He also earned his master's degree in civil engineering in the University of Illinois, and would later took a civil engineering board exam in 1953, where he placed 8th overall. He also held a master's degree in National Security Administration from the National Defense College of the Philippines, and a master's degree in Business Administration from Ateneo de Manila University. In addition, he received a total of 29 honorary doctorate degrees. Fidel V. Ramos, popularly known as FVR, was a Filipino general and a politician who served as the 12th President of the Philippines from 1992 to 1998. He was the only career military officer who reached the rank of 5-star General Admiral de Jore, rising from the second lieutenant to commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Ramos is credited for revitalizing and renewing internal confidence in the Philippine economy during his 6 years in office. Ramos rose through the ranks of Philippine military early in his career and became the chief of the Philippine Constabulary and the vice chief of staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines during the term of President Ferdinand Marcos. During the 1986 EDSA People Power Revolution, Ramos was hailed as a hero by many Filipinos for his decision to break away from the administration of Marcos and pledge alliance and loyalty to the newly established government of President Corazon C. Aquino. Prior to his election as president, Ramos served in the cabinet of President Aquino, first as a chief of staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and later as a Secretary of National Defense from the year 1986 to 1991. He was credited with the creation of the Philippine Army's Special Forces and the Philippine National Police Special Action Force. After his retirement, he remained active in politics, serving as an advisor to his successor. Ramos died of COVID-19 Omicron variant at the Makati Medical Center in Makati on July 31, 2022 at the age of 94.